While concerns continue over the potential aluminum and steel tariffs impact that they could have on U.S. agriculture. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders says she expects the president to sign these tariffs by the end of the week, leaving many speculating possible effects on U.S. farmers. Joining us now from the AFBF Washington headquarters is economist Veronica Nigh. Veronica, thanks for joining us once again. Of course, let's start with an overview of the top exporters of steel to the United States.
Well, thanks for having me on this topic today, Janet, because it's certainly of importance to U.S. farmers and ranchers, and we'll talk more about why. But certainly the president seems fixed and focused on the impact of imports of aluminum and steel from China. But really, when you start taking a look at who the top exporters of those products are to the United States, there's a lot of countries that we trade a lot of agricultural products with, including our friends in our NAFTA partners, Canada and Mexico. Japan, also a large export destination for U.S. ag products, is chief among them, as well as the European Union. So a lot of familiar trading partners are sending a lot of steel and aluminum to the United States, which has caught the president's eye. But we are concerned that it could potentially have impacts on U.S. agriculture.
Well, how concerned should the nation's farmers and ranchers be?
I don't want to be an alarmist, but this is a big deal. When we look at all of those countries that are exporting steel and aluminum to the United States, and we look at what the U.S. agriculture is shipping in agricultural goods to our partners, for those top 10 countries exporting steel to the United States, 70% of U.S. agricultural products in 2007 went to those destinations. Similarly, if you look at it from an aluminum standpoint, 50% of U.S. ag exports went to countries who would face retaliatory tariffs if the president decided to put tariffs on all exporters of aluminum and steel to the United States.
Now, Veronica, we've talked about the North American Free Trade Agreement a lot over the last several months, in fact, the last year. How do you see this impacting those negotiations moving forward?
You know, the NAFTA negotiations were already pretty complicated, and this just makes it more so, frankly. So if I'm a listener, I'm wondering, what in the heck does any of this have to do with U.S. agriculture? Well, it's because those tariffs, those countries that are facing tariffs on their aluminum and steel, they oftentimes like to retaliate against the United States with similar tariffs. And most of the time they do it on agricultural products because they know how important exports are to our industry. Canada and Mexico and the EU are all thinking about this and have all said, listen, if you put tariffs on our products, we're going to have to consider putting tariffs on yours. So that makes our negotiations more difficult in NAFTA. It makes it more difficult in our negotiations with partners worldwide.
Now, of course, the president did mention this week, I understand that maybe he might allow Canada and Mexico to not be a part of these tariffs and taxes. Does it still kind of cause a ripple in the water, though, as far as trade negotiations are concerned?
That's a good point, and we're all certainly waiting to see what the list of products and countries that the president decides to apply these tariffs to, and how that might impact those negotiations. But certainly it gives our trading partners more to think about when they're trying to decide what kind of a deal to make with the United States. Those tariffs would be pretty significant to those exporters, and therefore would complicate what sort of benefits they could give us throughout the other areas of the negotiations, like agriculture, which we obviously care about.
All right. Well, Veronica, thank you for joining us once again. AFBF economist Veronica Nigh joining us from our nation's